Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tomorrow night for MTSU football. The Blue Raiders taking on Jacksonville State on the road. Pregame starts at 5 o'clock, kickoff at 6:30. MTSU football coverage on 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville is presented by Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. We will get into the Nashville Predators coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. Ralph Russo from The Athletic will be with us at 7 o'clock. We'll get into all things college football with him, so looking forward to that. Looking ahead to the Titans and the Lions coming up. Rexrode's got a stat for us. Joe, I would imagine if you're a Titans fan looking for comfort today, this will not be a stat that provides said comfort.
Well, first of all, Nick deserves credit. This is the first I saw it, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, now I have to compare this to the Titans. He sent this to us. And honestly, I mean, this actually is way more amazing on the Lions side than it is on the Titans side. The Titans comparison is actually better for them than I thought it would be, because the past 4 games they've it includes the 31 at Miami. But this stat from the Lions is truly like, in the past 4 games, they have 18 touchdowns, and Jared Goff has 15 incompletions.
Yep.
That's truly incredible. I mean, that's why Jared Goff right now is being thrown out there in the MVP discussion. I think, again, he's just a fantastic example of, if you build an incredible support system for a good quarterback, he can look like a great quarterback. But regardless, that stat's absurd. Like, I can't. Yes. So I'm like, okay, well, now I have to go compare it to the Titans. Okay, so again, Lions, 18 touchdowns, 15 incompletions last 4 games. The Titans, not as bad as I thought, but still, even for it, not as bad as I thought. 41 incompletions, about 10 a game. Again, it's not. You might think it would be worse than that, but 9 touchdowns, which, again, also isn't good. But for them, I mean,
it's better than I thought.
It's right. But even so for the Titans, we're better than you thought. The contrast is Lions 18 touchdowns, Titans 9. Lions 15 incompletions, Titans 41. It's a pretty good stretch for the Titans, and still you see, that's like the Lions side of that is like, that's just one of those things where it's like, you couldn't possibly, think about that, like in one game to have more touchdowns than incompletions. You expect 8 incompletions, right? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty absurd. And he was sitting there the other day, like, whatever, 15 for 15, and finally had one bad at the line. And again, it's not dink and dunk either. I mean, some of it is, but I mean, it's ripping it down the field. Now, speaking of that, apparently Jameson Williams is going to be out for this game. A 2-game suspension for it didn't even say PED. It was like performance enhancing substance.
Yeah.
And it's 2 games. And so I'm like, is this like Jolt Cola or something? Like, what are we doing here? This is like not, because normally it's always 4 games. So I don't get that.
You regardless, put like Nas in his cleats or something and just light it up and go.
Yeah, I'd love to know what the heck that is, but apparently he is missing. So I mean, if you're a Titans fan, and if you are, bless your heart. I appreciate your loyalty. And again, like my sweet grandma Phyllis Pratt, and she finally got rewarded this year. Tigers would be winning 60 games in a season. She's still hoping they win on that day. If you're a Titans fan who hopes the Titans can get the win here on Sunday, it does help. It does help to not have Jameson Williams. I mean, they basically have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, Tim Patrick, and like that's it. So
pretty good tight end.
Of course, ridiculous backs and a good tight end. Yeah. Maybe the best offensive line in football, but
other than that,
at least you do take one weapon off the field.
You do. I appreciate you trying to give Titans fans some hope there. Can you name the current, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, the top 5 MVP favorites right now in the National Football League? I want to see if you can name them.
Well, I guarantee you that Mahomes is still in there just because he's Patrick Mahomes, even though like his numbers are not even, I mean, I think he has like 6 TDs and 8 picks.
You would be correct. He's in there.
I'm sure Lamar Jackson's in there.
Those are the top 2 on the list.
Okay. I mean, I'm assuming at this point Goff has moved into that top 5.
He is number 4.
Okay. Now it gets interesting. I to me, Derrick Henry should be in there.
He is not,
Um,
but I agree with you.
but I'm not shocked that he wouldn't be. Um, I guess I would throw Josh Allen in there.
He is number 3. So you have 1 through 4 that are spoken for.
Okay.
5,
And
you
then
may not guess.
Yeah, because 5, I mean, basically, to me, I think Jaden Daniels should be in there. I could see Sam Darnold being in there, and I could see C.J. Stroud being in there. It's got to be one of those 3.
It is not one of those 3. Stroud is 6. Darnold is 8. Daniels, I believe, is 10. At number 5, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers.
This is why you asked, so we could talk more about your beloved Jordan Love.
No,
okay.
No,
Well, I don't hate that. I mean, it's fine. Again, it's just betting odds. But Jaden Daniels, man, if he's 10th, what are the odds?
He is plus 3,000 on the Vandal Sportsbook.
Jump on it. I mean, who knows? He hurt his He hurt his ribs. If he's going to miss, like, I know they said Dan Quinn said week to week yesterday, but like the way he's playing and the way that offense is set, again, like you can have different opinions on Marcus Mariota. He's a talented guy. He's a very good backup to have. He came in that offense. It was just like, boom. It was like watch him at Oregon again. Yep. So I think that Jaden Daniels set up for success, and he's gonna make a push for it in my mind. But that's very interesting.
Derrick Henry is the highest non-quarterback on the list. He's number 12 on the list overall at plus 5,000. I agree with you. I think it should be higher than that. Like if he ends up with, I understand that this is basically turned into a quarterback award, and I don't expect that to change this year. But if he ends up at age 30 running for like 2,100 yards, which he's on pace for right now, do you not have to give him like serious consideration for that award at that point?
Yes, you do. You also, like, one thing you have to do is like you have to like give him some sort of like IOU, a gold jacket, like you're in the Hall of Fame, just so you know. But here's the thing. Even with that, like, for example, last night, ridiculous run, 81 yard run, all that stuff. Also, by the way, Lamar, 17 for 22, 281, 5 touchdowns, no picks. A rating of 158.1. That's the problem, is it's still like Derrick Henry, amazing, oh my God, but also he's not the MVP on his team. And he's not. I mean, right? Like, as incredible as it has been to watch him, obviously Lamar Jackson, it's just, this is why I was so excited for this combination, because I just feel like it's such a problem for defenses. And Henry, seeing some of these boxes he's seeing, it's got to be like so. I mean, think about what he was running into the last couple of years. Yeah, And I guess you could say he's lost a step, but like that safety had to come from, like, he had to take the biggest angle you could ever take to like cut him off at the 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
this is him losing.
I'd love to see him
2,100 yards. I'll take it.
Truly incredible. I mean, so someone asked on the text line, where, if let's say he has a 2,000 yard season, where does that, where is he pushing in terms of the best running backs of all time? It's an incredible list. But I think he's cracking into the top 10.
Oh, I would agree. I mean, all these lists are always going to be, especially kind of at that position, because I think one part of it that with him that makes it interesting. We've talked about this. When's the next guy that's going to get 10,000 yards on the ground? Because they're going to be another running back that gets 10,000 yards on the ground. There probably will be at some point, but it's way less. It's going to be way less common moving forward than it was, as we were all growing up watching football. So it's a completely different era, which you could argue. I've heard the arguments both ways, right? Like, well, if the rules were the way they used to be and the players were the way they used to be and it was as physical as it used to be, then maybe Derrick Henry wouldn't be doing this. But the other argument to that is, well, he's doing this right now in a league where nobody else is really even coming close to it. What does that tell you about how good he is? It's kind of wild.
Like if you put Derrick Henry, go back to the 80s, give him the Eric Dickerson, little neck brace thing.
Oh yeah.
And put him on one of those teams that just runs up. I mean, you're telling me that dude isn't?
He'd be fine
at 6'3", 250, running a 4.4. I mean, come on, he'd be unbelievable then too. So yeah, I don't buy that. It's a good question. I like a Barkley. Like you'll have the guy. It's just longevity,
Right.
right? Because almost every team now wants to. I mean, the Lions are a good example. But I mean, like if Barkley has a run of health here, he's good enough to do it, right? Potentially,
Yeah.
but it just seems like the problem is it's just like as soon as guys start to lose a step, teams move on from him, and then there's always new guys coming in the draft. Ashton Genty's coming in this year, and he's going to be in the top
Yeah.
20 for sure of the draft. But no, it's truly incredible. Like Derrick Henry, what he's doing is, I mean, I think this year, if there was any doubt about the Hall of Fame, I think he's erasing it.
I would agree. Coming up next, we'll get into the Nashville Predators. They are 0-5, looking for win number 1 still on the season, and the Boston Bruins are coming into town tonight. How high is the panic meter with the Nashville Predators right now? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Joe, the Nashville Predators back in action tonight. 0-5-0 to begin the season. They've got the Boston Bruins coming into town at Bridgestone Arena. Obviously, this is not the start to the season that the Predators were looking for. Andrew Burnett at practice yesterday basically wanted no part of his press conference, and you could tell that the frustration starting to creep in. How about this stat from Adam Vingan of DVD? The Predators are 0-5-0. This is what he put out on Twitter the other day. In the NHL's expansion era, which goes back to the 1967-68 season, 17 teams have started a season with at least 5 consecutive regulation losses. 6 of them have made the playoffs, and none have done so since the 95-96 season. So you're talking about 17 times outside of this one. This is the 18th. That a team has started 0-5 to begin the season. Only 6 have made the playoffs, which is roughly 35%, and nobody's made the playoffs starting 0-5 since 1995-96. Now, Joe, there's like weird stats like this in the NHL all the time that it feels like some team overcomes. Like I remember, the start the Oilers had last year, and people were throwing out all this stuff too, and then they went on an absolute run and got to the Stanley Cup final. So it's not like the Predators can't bounce back from this. But right now, they just look totally disjointed. I mean, it looks rough out there, and it's a combination of things. I think they are generating some good looks offensively, and for whatever reason, a lot of them just aren't going right now. And maybe that's as simple as you just stick with it, and eventually, you start to break through a little bit more offensively. And don't look now. I mean, UC Saros is 0-4 with an .875 save percentage, and according to Money Puck, the goal saved above expected is not going well for him right now. So it's fair, I think, to chalk it up to another slow start to the season for UC Saros. All in all, it's just not good for the Predators right now. Joe, what do you make of this start? The hole the Predators have dug themselves in. How high should the panic level be for Predators fans?
Yeah, well, that stat's interesting. First of all, when you said 6 of those teams made it, I was like, wow, that's actually not terrible.
It's better than I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know how many of those teams. Yeah, I mean, these stats are always interesting. There are always teams that buck those stats. I'd also like to know how many of those teams were as talented as this one is. I mean, that's how many of those starts were shocking starts,
right?
Because this one I think would qualify. But you mentioned the Saros thing. That's just. I think people, if they haven't already, need to brace themselves every year for UC Saros to start slowly. Last year, there was the new system thing, and certainly I think that was part of it because they were giving up primo looks at a higher rate than they should have as they figured things out. But he has been a slow starter consistently. So I think you just have to expect that, and you basically have to like overcome that early in the year. That said, Robby, you tell me, when I look at this team, I don't start with him as the number one issue. It's just that, the numbers aren't great. He is not right now saving their bacon, which he will do this year, by the way. That's among the many things that I believe will get better with this team, which will lead to a lot of wins. He will have stretches where he will just save their butts. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's what he is. That's who he is right now. No, like someone needs to step up with a big time performance. I know it's not just one person, but there needs to be some big time performances here to get the first win and change this, because it's just gonna. You mentioned Andrew Burnett getting sick. I mean, it's just gonna get worse and worse if you can't get a win.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Barry Trotz a little bit yesterday, and I wasn't even trying to talk hockey with him. Right, I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Well, we've had some better stretches," and then went into this big long thing about how it's about. It's kind of like a baseball hitter looking for their first hit. You just kind of press and press and press. And when you get the first one, maybe that opens the floodgates a little bit. I was telling some people this yesterday, Joe. I kind of view the hockey season as like 8 different 10-game segments. That's kind of how I've always viewed it, right? So right now in the first 10-game segment, you're off to a horrible start. You're 0-5. If you can find a way, if you're them, to get it to 3-7 or 4-6 or something like that, like you're going to have a stretch like that this year. you're going to have a stretch. I don't really care who you are, where you go 4-6 or 3-7 in a 10-game stretch in an 82-game season. So if you can get it to that, if you're the Predators, it's not ideal, but it's not a complete and total disaster either. Like, you can overcome it. Like, if you win tonight, you've got Chicago on Friday and Columbus on Saturday. And make no mistake about it, those are 2 games that they need to win. Now, there's no reason this team should have lost both games to Detroit either. So I get that. But if you can win tonight, I think you've got an opportunity this weekend to maybe make up some ground. And if you get to the end of this first 10-game stretch and you're 3-7 or 4-6, it's not great, but it's not a complete disaster. If you lose tonight and you get to 0-6, and particularly if you drop another one of those games Friday and Saturday, then you're digging yourself a hole that's going to be really difficult to come out of. Because the other part of this is that they've basically been healthy, right? Like, Saros missed the first game, which maybe they win that game if he's in there. Like, Wedgwood did not play great in that game, but he missed the first game. Other than that, they've pretty much been healthy. So you're talking about a season last year where you were relatively healthy for the most part. Is that going to be the case all year? I don't know. Like, it's a long season. So that's a long way of me saying, if you lose tonight and you get to 0-6, you're digging yourself in a hole that you're just going to have to play excellent hockey for a long period of time in an 82-game season to dig your way out of. And that's not where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I like the way you look at it and break it down that way. And some of those 10-game segments, I fully believe with this team, you're gonna have some 8-2s or whatever, some 7-2-1s, and you're gonna have your 2 6-2s or whatever it is. And it's just that, it's just totally. I mean, it's interesting. I'm sure Trotz was very brief with you when he started talking about things. So quick synopsis, get in and get out. But I mean, it's a great analogy in all seriousness. The hitter that just pressing, and then now the team that's pressing. So you need to turn pressing into like whatever areas of the game where it's just as simple as intense and physical as you can be. That's where you press, and then when it comes to the skill stuff, you try not to press,
Right.
which I know is like easier said than done, but it is at this point, to me, it's just as simple as get one win, and then you stop the snowball. And then again, you still have a lot of things to work on, but you have to find one way to get, or some way to get one win.
Zach LaRue going to be in there tonight. He'll make his NHL debut.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Looks like Tomasino Parsonen going to be the odd men out at the forward group. So in a year where it was kind of put up or shut up for them, I just don't really see this ending well for either one of them here with the Predators, but we'll see what happens on that front. We will get back into the Predators later in the show. We got a lot to get into on the hockey team today. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Ralph Russo from The Athletic, get his thoughts on all things college football. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Talking a little college football, and to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Ralph Russo from The Athletic. Ralph, good morning. How are you?
I am great. How are you guys?
We're awesome. Appreciate so much you
Super.
taking time to be with us this morning. Ralph, I want to start with Tennessee's win against Alabama. What did you make of that win for Tennessee, and what do you make now of their path to the college football playoff? Obviously, with the huge game at Georgia still remaining on their schedule, but what did you make of that win for Tennessee?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a bit of a journey with Tennessee this year. I was really high on them coming into the season, probably a little higher than even their AP poll ranking. They started about 15 or so. And I thought that they were a playoff team coming in because I kind of thought they would get a lot out of Nico. And then I thought, wow, this team might be able to win a national championship. And then they went out and laid an egg against Arkansas. And I'm still not sure with this offense, they are a national championship level team. I just think you got to score some points in big games, especially 2 or 3 or 4 big games to win a national championship. But I still think, they could probably absorb one more loss to Georgia and get in. I do think this notion that 10-2 in the SEC is a lock to get in probably is maybe a little bit presumptuous, because I do think there's a possibility here when I kind of look at the map that there could be a bunch of 10-2 teams and one of them might get left out. Now, but so as for beating Alabama, listen, man, they hadn't beaten Alabama in a decade and a half, and now they've beaten them 2 out of 3 years at home. So it shows that the program is obviously moving in the right direction. I know, the emotions swing quickly in the SEC, and you go from loving your coach to hating your coach in one weekend. But it does look like the thing is going in the right direction there at Tennessee. It was an impressive win. I mean, the defense is the best thing about this team, and they need Nico to be better, but he is a young guy who should get better.
Yeah, well, I'm with you, Ralph, on the picture. I said earlier this week, for example, if you're a Tennessee fan, you've got a game this weekend. You've got Penn State going to Wisconsin. There's a game where root hard for Wisconsin, because the Big Ten, and you wrote about Indiana this week, and we've all been fawning all over Indiana. It's an incredible story. We've got a lot of incredible stories, but there's an example. I mean, this could get really muddled with this picture. Let me just ask you, big picture, Ralph, what you expected going into this first 12-team season versus what we've seen so far. How does it match up with kind of how you thought it would go?
I think it's going along the lines of what I thought, but I only say that because I had I had sort of very wide open expectations. I kind of went in knowing that this is going to be weird, right? It's not just the expanded playoff; it's the combination of expanded playoff plus expanded power conferences, where you get this weird combination of bigger games that maybe have, we get into this conversation a lot, slightly lesser stakes, but then you end up sort of having to step back and go, well, wait a second, if Texas, people will be like, well, Texas and Georgia, they'll both get in, or Alabama and Georgia, they'll both get in. Not so fast. Alabama is in big trouble right now. We don't realize how quickly the losses will pile up, especially in a league like the SEC, where there are so many times where these top-ranked teams are squaring off against other teams that have the ability to beat them. So I think that's the thing, that it's not so much my expectation. It was, I was interested to see how that plays out. And now, again, we're getting to that point where, this idea that, you can lose a game. Sure, you can lose a game, but now Texas has got to basically run the table to make sure they get in. If they lose to Texas A&M on Thanksgiving weekend, again, you're sitting there at 10-2. Maybe you're not in the SEC championship game. You look around the country, you look around your league, and all of a sudden, wow, I thought we were good, and now we're out of this thing.
Ralph, I'm interested for your thoughts on Clemson because they open up the season against Georgia and they just get smoked. And it kind of feels like it's the same old thing that we've seen from them the last couple of years. And, the landscape of college football shifting and maybe Dabo not adapting to it quick enough. They've been rolling through people ever since then. What do you make of Clemson and the threat that they are potentially in the college football playoff this year?
Yeah, I do wonder if there's two things can be true here, right? Like Clemson is no longer capable of winning a national championship. They're not built at that level. I think that could still be true, and that's what a lot of us threw dirt on Dabo after that Georgia game. But I also think that he's done a nice job of responding to show that, like, hey, this program is still pretty good. Now, they haven't beaten top-tier competition, but I say this a lot about Indiana. Listen, like, I know the schedule is not very good, but if you're beating everybody 45-14, like, that signals that something good is going on there, and that's where Clemson is right now. They seem to have fixed that offense. So they certainly look like they're one of the best two teams in the ACC. And if you look at the path in the ACC, and you could see a ACC championship game with an 11-1 Clemson and a 11-1 or 12-0 Miami, like that I would think set up pretty well if you're the ACC to get two teams in. I just think the most encouraging thing for Clemson is, again, regardless of the competition, because they were having a hard time scoring against similar competition the last couple of years, is they seem to have fixed the offense. Garrett Riley's system seems to be taking hold. Why? Maybe Cade Klubnik needed an extra year in there, but they are explosive again, and they have really been struggling with that for the last really 2 or 3 years. So that's the most encouraging sign about Clemson, is that they look like they can be an explosive offense again.
Talking to Ralph Russo from The Athletic. Absolutely gigantic signing for us at The Athletic, by the way. It's like Reggie Jackson to the Yankees. Sorry, Ralph. I know you're a Mets fan, but a great run by the Mets.
Reggie
we have some other Mets fans here.
Way to show your age.
Yes.
Reggie Jackson. I get it. But Reggie Jackson to the Yankees is a hell of a reference there, Joe. Thank you very much.
Hey,
I don't think I'm the straw that stirs the drink here, but I do appreciate the kind words.
Well, I like to show off my boomerness as much as possible. They call me boomer all the time anyway, Ralph, so I may as well lean into it, So I got to ask you about Army Navy, because we may be headed toward Army Navy AAC title game, with huge implications. And then we have the selections, and then we have, as always, the Army Navy game, a week after. Like, does there need to be an adjustment after this year, just because of obviously we're seeing both of these teams legitimately making a push?
It is the perfect example of college football still being not that we need all that many reminders, but sort of this low level constant dysfunction in college football of, they won't be that good. We'll just play the game after the playoff. What's the chances? What are the chances that Army and Navy are both going to be playoff contenders? And then, of course, they are playoff contenders immediately. The first year they set this thing up, they are looking at the scenario that they so dreaded, which is, the other problem is not just that essentially the Army-Navy game, not the possible Army-Navy game in the AAC championship, but the Army-Navy game could conceivably be a week before the playoff with a playoff team in it. So the Service Academy team playing a game that doesn't matter when they have to go play a playoff game the next week, probably on somebody's home field, that's not great either. I think reality might come to bear in the next week or so. Navy plays Notre Dame this week. I think Navy's pretty good. I think they're both pretty good. I do think Army's schedule is a little softer, and they haven't quite shown out. Notre Dame could kind of put an end to all of this to a certain degree if they go out and beat both Army and Navy, because I think Boise, UNLV probably look like the better teams out west. But yeah, it's just, it's just farcical that like here's the solution. The solution is we'll come up with this really bad idea that could come back to bite us in the butt, and immediately it comes back and bites them in the butt.
Yeah, very well said. No doubt about that. Well, Ralph, great stuff as always. Really appreciate your perspective and you taking time to be with us this morning, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Ralph Russo from The Athletic, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your reaction. Got a lot to get into on the college football front coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Attention builders, remodelers, and homeowners, Pella Windows and Doors invites you to their showroom grand opening this Thursday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at 256 East Main Street in Hendersonville, God's country. Discover premium windows and doors, enjoy food and drinks, and see how Pella can transform your home. Stillman & Company will be broadcasting live, and there will also be some raffle prizes given away, including Preds tickets, Arctic coolers, and more. Make sure you check that out coming up on Thursday, 3 to 7 p.m. in Hendersonville. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Vols, the Titans, the Preds, who knows what else, with Gentry Estes coming up at 8. So looking forward to all that. Thanks to Ralph Russo for being on with us in the last segment. Joe, he highlights it there. It's the first year of the 12-team playoff. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. You know, ESPN has like their football power index, and they put something out, I think, late last night about like the percentage chances to get to the SEC title game. I think Tennessee's in third. I think it's Texas 1, LSU at 2, Tennessee at 3, with Georgia at 4, given that their schedule right now. Now, we all know what you can do with the ESPN football power index, but it just kind of highlights the conference championship with Texas and Oklahoma coming in and the elimination of the divisions. It's going to be really interesting to see how that part of it plays out this year. And I do have a feeling that there's at least a chance that you could have multiple 10-2 teams in the SEC. And I do wonder, do all of them get in? Or is there one or two that gets left out? I'm really fascinated to see what that's going to look like come season's end here.
Yeah, well, like we were talking about yesterday, it's like, I think yesterday, the whole Alabama thing, like Tennessee beat them. There you go. All right, Tennessee's in great shape. Alabama's in trouble. Well, if Alabama, like you said, Robby, it's good for Tennessee for the Alabama win to look as good as possible. That's true, but also if Alabama wins out, including a win at LSU and Georgia, let's say Georgia just is all of a sudden the Texas win, they're going to take off from here. And they're gonna win out, including beating Tennessee. Alabama has a great win, of course, over Georgia. So Alabama beat Georgia, Georgia beat Tennessee, Tennessee beat Alabama. If Alabama and Tennessee are in that mix of 10-2 teams compared against each other, don't assume that just the head-to-head just settles the deal. Again, that's where again, it's like the Wisconsin angle of this. Alabama went and that's the thing. I said yesterday, Rob, this is where it gets into, so you can look at it so many different ways. Like I said yesterday, and I still stick by it, like you want the win to look as good as possible, so Alabama look good as possible, so Wisconsin beat Penn State, and you want Penn State to get dragged back to the pack. You want the Big Ten to have 3 teams and not 4 teams. Yes. Right? But at the same time, you could flip that around and say, well, but if Penn State beats Wisconsin, that Wisconsin win looks not as good for Alabama. And then, right. you could go down that rabbit hole too if you want. But look, you go through all the teams. Look, there are 2 undefeated Big 12 teams right now. I think the Big 12 is a 1-bid league. I think that's the quality of that league. But the fact is, Iowa State and BYU are unbeaten.
Right.
So, and in the ACC, you got Miami and you got Clemson, or you got Miami. Clemson has the 1 loss, as you mentioned. Then you have Pittsburgh is undefeated, and then they don't play. So, the things could shake out where it gets really complicated, and it's not a lock. I still believe Tennessee wins out. Tennessee is competitive at Georgia. Tennessee is going to find its way into the field. But I'm saying that, I still think like just the SEC schedule itself is going to benefit these teams. Some play tougher schedules than others. Yeah. That's another thing, of course. But I think in the end, it'll work out that way. But there are going to be a ton of teams potentially right in that range.
Well, I think what I said yesterday is as critical for Tennessee as anything else. Obviously, the most important thing is you have to win the games on your schedule that you're supposed to win. So you can't have another Arkansas. Like you need to beat Kentucky, Mississippi State, UTEP, and Vanderbilt. That needs to be priority number 1 if you're Tennessee. obviously you want to beat Georgia. I think you got to avoid getting absolutely smoked by Georgia at minimum. And then the number 3 thing that I think is also critically important here, I think everybody who's watched Tennessee to this point recognizes that they have a championship level defense. If their offense passes the eye test down the stretch here and looks really good, and the second half of the Alabama game was a turning point for that offense, I think that makes a big difference. If they continue to struggle on offense, even if they win some of these games, I think that's going to matter down the stretch. So the offense, I think, has to operate at a much higher level. Beyond the obvious of just winning the games, I think the offense needs to look good while doing it. And I think that helps Tennessee if that happens.
No, 100%. I mean, one thing that's not different from the 4 team to the 12 team, this committee, like people have gone in and they've done the mock selections, things like that. I mean, they dig into stuff that's way beyond the schedule strength and the basic stuff that we all know. They watch these teams, they watch film, they look at in-depth analytics on both sides of the ball. And I'm with you. If Tennessee, because again, it's like basketball, as we talk about every March. The question, because I've done the basketball mock selection, the question is, can this team win games in this tournament?
Right.
As you look at this team, do you believe it can come in here against these other teams and win? Is it good enough? And so if Tennessee looks like it continues to build momentum and competence on offense, that's a huge part of this. If they win these games and they get the results you're talking about, but it's basically the defense carrying them and they continue to just really struggle offensively and not put it together, I absolutely think that's a factor that could hurt them.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Nate. Nate, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What's up, guys? It sounds like, will we ever get away from the term great loss? And I just had that thought when Ralph Russo was basically saying that it's not a lock and it really isn't, for Tennessee to get in if they lose at Georgia. So I was just curious what y'all thought about that term, bad or good loss, if it will ever get away from that in college football.
Yeah, thanks for the call. No. I think progressively more and more that's probably going to be used more. Now that there is more margin for error in the college football playoff. And look, it's not stopping at 12. It's going to 14. It may get to 16 at some point. I think we're going to use that more. And the fact of the matter is, Joe, I mean, not all losses are created equal. Like, Tennessee losing to Arkansas is not the same as Georgia losing to Alabama, right? Like, it's two very different things.
Exactly. Yeah, quality of loss, quality of win. This is another distinction. This is true in basketball. This will be true in football. A great win will overcome a bad loss.
Yes.
Right? Like if your overall record's good and you have this really valuable win, that's going to help you more than the bad loss hurts you. But certainly, like the quality of the teams you lose to. If Tennessee, if Tennessee, were to lose to one of these other teams on the schedule not named Georgia, that's a real problem. Now, of course, but there's an example. But if they go win at Georgia, they're better off. Like if they lose to Kentucky at home, not great. But if they also beat Georgia, I would argue that they still would overall have a resume bump from that. It would be a better resume because that win is so good.
Right. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation on the Vols. Plus, one thing some people down in Alabama apparently really mad about when it comes to Tennessee. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are broadcasting live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will be with us coming up at 8 o'clock. Joe, some people down in Alabama are mad after that game on Saturday. This apparently happened in the middle of the game. I didn't see this until yesterday. So Chris Stewart, who is the play-by-play announcer for the Crimson Tide Sports Network, was talking during the game, obviously doing his job. And on a 2nd and 16 for Alabama says, quote, 2nd and 16, not what you're looking for, especially with the noise level being what it is here. You got 100,000 plus, and they also pipe in crowd noise as well, was the quote from Chris Stewart. You then had A.J. McCarron, former Alabama quarterback, getting on Twitter and talking about how they 100% pipe in crowd noise at Tennessee. Now, Danny White, Tennessee athletic director, scoffed at that online. A lot of Vols fans are scoffing at that. Joe, I ask you, as somebody who's been to Neyland Stadium many times, do you believe that Tennessee is piping in crowd noise? What do you make of these accusations from Alabama folk who apparently are pretty mad?
Yeah, it's very weird. And again, I know that it's an offhand comment in the middle of a game, but I think that's insanely inaccurate. Now, has it ever happened? I can't speak to that. So, like, did AJ McCarron experience that and believe that he heard through the loudspeaker crowd noise pumped in? Maybe. I'm trying to remember. So McCarron would have played during the Dooley era, right?
Correct.
Am I right
he was
about
there
that?
from 11 to 13. So I think
so pretty bad
Dooley
years
and
for
maybe
Tennessee.
the first year of Butch.
Yeah. So maybe it has happened. Look, the first time that I really got the experience was in 2016 when they came back to beat Florida. I think you were at that game too. Then I was on the field for, a decent chunk of the fourth quarter, working for the Tennessee at the time. And I was like, this is probably as loud, as good as it gets. Also, and some Vols fans have pointed this out, like their PA system actually isn't awesome.
No, it's not.
So
great.
What happens a lot of times in that stadium is like when the crowd noise is so crazy, like it'll just overwhelm when the PA announcer or whatever other announcements or whatever, like it just drowns it out. So are you suggesting then that they are also drowning themselves out with a different system of sound? I mean, it's pretty stupid. It's pretty stupid. They don't need to pipe in crowd noise. It's an incredible atmosphere. And I think the other day was, again, I said this yesterday, Robbie, there's an amazing atmosphere the other day. It was very loud. When you're in that press box, you are definitely like you're way up there and you're somewhat separated from that, but you can still sense it. It was not to me, it was not 2 years ago, which was like a combination of like, oh my gosh, this might happen, but also just so many huge plays, just bad, just an insane game. And this was, like some of this game was like, just, oh my God, there was booing in this game. Did they pipe that in too? I don't know. But yeah, look, again, maybe there is some history and some truth to that at some point in history. I find that to be comical. Like if you're in Alabama, and I know, so now it becomes this big fight back and forth. If you're like an Alabama fan or like make fun of butt chugging or something, there's so many other things you could choose. Like the one thing I would not accuse Tennessee of is like having to manufacture crowd noise in Neyland Stadium.
Remington on the text line referring to Alabama and their fans as the Gumps. The Gumps are down so bad, they got to cry and accuse Tennessee of piping in crowd noise. Just an incredible compliment. I knew they would fall off after Saban, but I didn't think it would happen this fast. So sad. GBO, this from Remington, with a shout out to one of the greatest movies of all time, Forrest Gump.
Man, That's I must say, like, I figured this week would be nothing, and I actually watched some Feinbaum yesterday, and it lived up to my hopes.
Yes.
Just of like Kalen DeBoer might be the dumbest human on the planet type stuff.
It's not going well for him right now.
No, but I didn't anticipate this one. But again, like it's just from an offhand mention, on a radio broadcast. It's just so weird. I actually would like to hear, like, beyond, oh, they absolutely do it. I'd like to hear AJ McCarron. Okay, tell. So how do you know this? Okay, so you must believe that from your playing days when you were in Neyland Stadium, which again, not great times. Like, when McCarron played at Tennessee, what was the final score of that game? And it was probably this was Saban. The Saban Death Star was fully operational, and Tennessee was down bad. So, did Tennessee? Do you believe, Robby?
The final score was 44-13.
Okay, so do you believe that at any point Tennessee has felt like we got to pump in some crowd noise in this sucker?
I mean, I've been to Neyland Stadium a pretty good amount over the years. I don't know that I've ever walked out of there saying, "Oh, I think they pumped in some crowd noise." As a matter of fact, I've been through some Tennessee-Alabama games where it's pretty darn quiet in there. Not a whole lot of crowd noise at all because the score was 55-0 at one point.
Yeah, like I remember, like one of the, I would say definitely the worst atmosphere I've seen in there was when Butch was, like, we basically knew Butch was
the
toast.
41-0 Georgia game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like there was nothing pumped. That would have been hilarious if there was like,
it really would have.
There was nothing but booze and just misery. It's weird. But I would love to know more about where does this come from? Is there some actual truth to this at any point, or is this just like bitter? Like, why would McCarron say that? It's not like he has to be bitter about his 31-point win at Neyland. So what is that about?
I don't know.
I'd like to hear more.
Chris in Nashville says, Eli Gold would have never. As a lifelong Bama fan, I can't stand Chris Stewart, and this doesn't surprise me. Another texter says, the biggest sign that the Saban era is over is when you had the two wide receivers acting like they were shooting basketball when they went for it on the quarterback sneak. That one is generating a ton of reaction this week.
I love that. Don't be mad at them for that.
Two wide receivers doing the fadeaway jumper as Jalen Milroe going for the quarterback sneak, which, by the way, was like a half-yard short that they called for a first down. That was fun.
Well, yeah, you can get mad at the kid who was absolutely melting down at Vanderbilt, and certainly Kendrick Law. Although I don't know, we talked about this. I hate that they gave him a personal foul. I think they should have given offsetting. Boo Carter started it. The second guy always gets it. We know that, right? Yeah. But Boo Carter actually swung and missed after that.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I mean, that was bad.
The saying something is one thing. Like, I saw some Bama fans talking about he should have been called for taunting. It's like, well, you have no idea what he said, and people talk to each other after every play. So taunting would have been ridiculous. Talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when he threw the punch and missed it, I guess that's why he didn't get thrown for a flag, is because he missed.
Exactly. I hate that, because that ends the game, right? But
nice screen call though on 4th and 22.
Yeah, that was weird. But I mean, those are things you can get mad at. The basketball thing, you can't. Did you see? Oh my gosh, what game was it? The celebration of throwing the ball up like an alley-oop, the quarterback, and then he had him dunk it.
No, I did not see this.
Okay, I'll find this and send it to you. Brilliant stuff. But yeah, speaking of brilliant stuff, yeah, I don't know. I can't get there with like where this started. I want to know more. I know that right now, if anything, they should try to preserve ears in that place from the real sound being made by actual humans.
Yeah,
because it is incredible at times.
It's pretty loud, and you got the combination the other day of the crowd noise that hurts your ears, and then the mountains of smoke that hurt your lungs in the aftermath of that game.
Yeah, it actually is
kind of hazardous to your body.
It hazardous to your health. Yeah, Tennessee games should come with like one of those warnings on a cigarette box.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Dennis says pretty sure half the crowd at Neyland are just animatronics.
Yeah, there's that.
Maybe they're bots in the stands.
Yep. I got a text that says, I hate them both, but Tennessee got a lot of help from the Zebras in that game. A lot of help from the Zebras in that game.
I mean, that's the one call that I had an issue with. I don't remember anything else controversial. I mean, Bama got flagged a lot, but they also had probably 3 or 4 false starts at least because of the crowd noise, because of real humans, I think. But yeah, I didn't like that call. But I don't think it was a lopsided game. You're a fair-minded Tennessee fan. Did you think so? Did your dad think that Bama got hosed by the refs?
They probably Tennessee definitely got away with a pass interference toward the goal line at one point. But other than that, like it was a bunch of false start penalties and holding, basically, is what got called. I mean, like I said, they gave Alabama a free first down when Jalen Milroe was a half yard short and missed an obvious holding call on a bubble screen the very next play. So every time Tennessee beats Alabama, apparently it's the ref's fault. That's what we learned from Alabama fans. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
2nd and 16's not what you're looking for, especially with the noise level being what it is here. You got 100,000 plus, and they also pipe in crowd noise as well.
I find that to be comical. Like if you're in Alabama, like, and I know, so now it becomes this big fight back and forth. If you're like an Alabama fan, or like make fun of butt chugging or something, like there's so many other things you could choose. Like the one thing I would not accuse Tennessee of is like having to manufacture crowd noise in Neyland Stadium.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours.
I'm just going to start with this, and I'm going to ask you, Robby, if you know what I'm talking about. I am a freaking idiot.
I don't know.
You don't know?
It could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, there's a lot of ways that I could validate that statement, but I was going to go and read some of these. It's so much that I can't even, like, I'm not going to start. It's all from it's like ball lover 87637, whatever. I'm an idiot. You tell me, though. I mean, tell me if you agree that I'm an idiot, and I want you to be totally honest with me, okay? Because I really thought there was no way anyone would misunderstand this. I really, and it's just stupid. It's stupid that I would think that, but this was my tweet yesterday. So David Ubben, my coworker at The Athletic, he was on the field at the end of the game, and he has video of, I think it's the last play, I believe. Yeah, it's the little, like you said, let's try a little, see if we can get 22 yards on throw past the sticks and get a PI. That was a terrible call. So he tweets this out, and I quote tweet it yesterday after all this stuff is going on, right? And I'm like, so because on the video, the Vols make the tackle, the game's over. It's a huge roar. And so I quote tweeted and said, the timing there, piping in louder cheers at the tackle. Very well done by UT. Like, I really thought, no, everyone's going to get that's sarcasm, right?
Oh.
Everyone will get that. I'm so stupid.
I'm looking at the replies right now. It's unbelievable.
I mean, I got called every nasty name a person could be called. By the way, that tweet has 827 likes, 132,000 impressions. Now, let me, first of all, I'm not turning this into a rip on Vol Twitter, because almost all the likes and a lot of the conversation is from Vol fans, and a lot of the conversations Vol fans like, hey, idiot, he's kidding. However, I'm stupid, because if you see the replies, Robby, this just totally was a time suck on me yesterday, because I couldn't
smoked on here. Yeah.
Oh, and I couldn't resist being like, dude, I know I know. Go to a game, MFer. We don't pipe. And of course I have to respond, right? Dude, I know. I was joking. I'm kidding. No, duh. Just a complete, I cost myself probably 2 hours yesterday with that one. Here, let me make a little funny joke. Why do I do this to myself? We've had these discussions before where I think I'm funny and I'm trying to do something sarcastic, and whatever, people misunderstand it. And then I have to sit there and explain myself and do damage control.
All right, but I guess what I don't understand here, is the joke that you made, I think, is pretty clearly understandable. So how did so many people miss it, I guess, is my question, because it's really not that hard to understand.
And the thing is, I thought so too when I tweeted it, but look, if you're going to do something like this, then again, either have the time, which I never have the time to get in there and explain things to people, or just don't do it. Just don't do it. Is it really worth the little funny joke that you thought was? I mean, Ubben immediately tweeted, I laughed. Thanks. I feel good about it. Again, lots of Vols fans are in there like, oh, that's pretty good. And oh my God, how do you people not get that? But a lot of people didn't. And most of them swore at me.
I think my favorite response is from @JL Hinderlight 12. Joe, you dumb A. Tennessee doesn't pipe in noise. don't need to pipe in noise. Plus, it's against the rules to pipe in noise. To which your response was, you don't say. Big news flash there. Thanks. Golly,
yeah.
you were in one yesterday. All Twitter was all over you.
It's just I don't. It's just why do you do this to yourself? You know, I just thought it was hilarious. I was like, this is just amazing. Like there's actually a big thing about Tennessee piping and pride, and the thing is, it'll probably last all week. And you know, it'll also, like, some of Bama Twitter will now probably adopt it as like a frequent, right? Like it'll just be like, for them, this will be now an agreed upon fact, right? Like this is just something that is of course true, and they know it pisses off Vols fans. I know that too now, very well, and so they will continue to use it. So here we go.
Bevan on the text
What a
line.
rivalry.
One must always consider the level of intelligence of the Tennessee fan when communicating with them. This is from Bevan.
See, I'm not.
on the text
That
line.
is not my rant, by the way. Now, some of these people must be dumb as a rock. Okay, but again, it's like, and it's mostly like people with an egg on their, and like, again, their name has like 19 numbers in it.
Yeah.
And what are they? I mean, are they real people? I don't even know, but they seem very angry. They're angry bots if they're bots.
They are.
Very angry bots. But again, the overwhelming majority response is from Tennessee fans. Like, yeah, that's pretty funny. You know, good one. Hey, dummy, he's kidding. That's most of. So again, we isolate a tiny fraction of a fan base. You can't make that tiny fraction represent the fan base.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will join us coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. And we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Gentry Estes from the Tennessean. Gentry, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. Joe, I consider that rant a cautionary tale. I'm sure that was a glorious way to spend a day for you.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I've done similar things too, and then I mean, it's just it is a cautionary tale. Hopefully, I'll listen to it.
I have my doubts.
Yeah, exactly.
I have my doubts for sure. Gentry, number one, do you think Tennessee's piping in crowd noise in Neyland Stadium? And number two, what did you make of that win for the Vols on Saturday?
No, I'll tell you, it has been kind of funny to hear. It's like it gets presented from the Alabama side as if it's just a fact, like, of course, everybody knows it. And, I'll say this as somebody who's been going to games in that stadium for a long time. I feel like the crowd at Tennessee was louder 15, 20, 25 years ago than it is now. I feel like it's getting that way. I mean, it was really loud on the field at the end of that game. It was loud, certainly loud at the end of the 22 game against Alabama. But, Neyland Stadium's a loud stadium. There are some stadiums I'd say they might need to pipe in crowd noise. That's one where they don't.
Bryant Denny, perhaps.
Oh, boy.
Is that what you're saying, Gentry? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, been to games of Bryant Denny, too, and I would consider Neyland I think Neyland is one of I think it is the loudest stadium. When Tennessee is right, I think it is the loudest stadium in the SEC. I've been saying that for 2 decades. And, there are others that have plenty of claim to that, but Tennessee is the loudest. I've never heard a stadium, arena, anything louder than Neyland Stadium at times. Now, They haven't always hit that here in the last couple of years, but when you're that loud, I guess it's easy to say you're doing something untoward to get there. But as far as the actual win for Tennessee, I mean, a big win. It was, kind of an ugly game. I don't know why you stormed the field afterwards, just because I don't think it was this shocking upset or anything. I think Tennessee was just a better team. Alabama clearly has taken a step back without Saban, but but from the standpoint of the season, and Tennessee had to have it for the playoff hopes, and they got it. Now they're in pretty good shape.
So we've got, this is a little bit of a boomer segment here. I'm very proud. Gentry talking about how Neyland was louder 20 years ago, and these darn kids rushing the field. I agree, by the way. It was almost like a delayed rush, wasn't it? It was kind of like, all right, what the heck?
Here's what I think happened. I was standing over behind the end zone in front of where the recruits sit.
Yeah.
And I think that the first group that came on the field were the recruits, quite honestly. The recruits kind of emptied that section. I heard it before the end of the game. I mean, they were planning to do it. And, it's an interesting thing because, okay, the school's going to get fined for this. But what do you do if it's a recruit? Do you, are you grabbing them with security? And of course not. I mean, you want them to have a good experience. It's actually kind of an interesting topic to me.
Yeah, it really is.
That is.
It's pretty wild when you think about it that way. Gentry, as they move forward, did connect on them in the second half. The throw to Thornton was an unbelievable throw by him. The throw to Brazel in the end zone. Did you feel like Tennessee's offense took a step that could be sustainable in the second half of that game?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly want to figure out why things are always so slow early in games. I mean, this is a trend now that they look just so terrible offensively for a half. And, it is – I do think it's too early to be out on Nico. I've kind of thought that all along. The guy's got a lot of ability, and I think, he showed it with a few of those throws. I feel like I feel like he still needs some time to grow. He is a young quarterback, and I think he's getting better as he does this. And the good news, I think, for Tennessee here in the coming weeks is he's going to have that time to grow. I mean, when you look at Tennessee's schedule, other than that trip to Georgia, there really isn't much on there that would scare you. And I feel like at this point, 10-2 almost seems like a minimum for this team. And I think there's, as long as he stays healthy and they're able to kind of keep building some confidence, I feel like Nico is a talented guy who's going to be a good quarterback. It didn't come as easily this season as I think a lot of people would have thought, but there were a lot of reasons for that. Most notably the pass protection and some of the other things offensively didn't really help him, and that's going to have to help him along the way too.
Wow, a little Vanderbilt disrespect in here too, Gentry. I hope
Diego
Diego was listening. Yeah,
that's the second strongest game left on their schedule. You look at that and you say a trip to Vanderbilt is trickier than probably games against Kentucky and Mississippi State at this point.
Yeah, but could be a good one. We'll see how those teams develop from here. Stilly is blowing me up, bitching about we're not talking enough Titans, so he's
yes. Let's please talk about them.
Jared talks enough Titans for everybody. I mean, my gosh.
Exactly. Well, so let's go to that though, Gentry. I do. Now, I didn't hear exactly his convoluted conspiracy theory, but he 100%, and I knew it. He doesn't believe Brian Callahan on all the explanation of the Levis, the timeline, the injury, playing him now, not playing him, all that stuff. Do you find the way the Titans have explained the Levis situation to be truthful? Do you buy it? And then also, where do you think it goes from here with the quarterback situation with the Titans?
I'll say, I mean, it's hard to know. I don't have any reason not to buy it. I could see where, Joe, you and I were talking about this on Saturday. I mean, I could see where you could look at this situation and try to read into it as a conspiracy theory. But do I sit here knowing that no, Will Levis really is? I don't know. I have no reason not to believe it. At this point, it's getting harder and harder to really want to care about what's going on, just because that team is barreling very quickly toward apathy territory for the rest of this season. It would have been interesting had the first half against Buffalo, had that held up and they get real close, or maybe even pull out something, with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. I think it would have been pretty fascinating at that point to see what happens, because at some point self-preservation is going to start kicking in with any team, and you would risk losing, the players on the team if Mason Rudolph was clearly better than Will Levis and you still kept going to Levis. It didn't really end up that way. I mean, I don't think Mason Rudolph is going to be the answer here for that team. I think there's way, way too many questions on that team right now to think of, the backup quarterback's going to be the answer. So to me, I've kind of been always on the side of why not put Levis out there. There's really no reason not to give him this season and see what happens. So, you say, well, we want to put Rudolph out there and we want to find a way to do it. But the thing is, if Levis isn't hurt, he knows he's not hurt. So if the idea is to protect his confidence, then they're not doing that. Certainly if this is a deliberate move. So yeah, I think he's probably
right. And why would he participate? That's just ridiculous. Like, he's going to participate in this. I mean, to me, that's absurd. He'd make a Mayo commercial and tell the world he's being held down.
Maybe it doesn't help the Titans to have him on the sideline. Why would it? They put the other guy in there and lost by 24 points. So, what are you really accomplishing here?
So, Gentry, to that point, we all know the quarterback play has been, I would argue, the main problem for the Titans this year. There's a laundry list of problems that this team has. My question for you is, at what point do we become concerned, or maybe are we already there with a concern level, that the head coach may be one of those problems? I realize that we're 6 games into his tenure, so it's too early to write off the possibility that he could be a good coach in the National Football League. But I got to tell you, I've not been overly impressed by what I've seen to this point.
Yeah, here's the deal. You knew going into the season that you basically took a team of mercenaries, and from the standpoint of you just collected players in free agency, threw them all together and said, all right, now be a team, right? You also have a head coach who had never been a head coach before, who was put in a leadership position in that room. you have a D coordinator, never been a D coordinator before, although I think Nar Wilson's done awfully well this year. But I feel like when you look at that team, it was always going to be an issue of when things started going poorly, who steps up? Whose voice is the one you hear in the room? And I don't know if a guy who hasn't been there as a head coach and came from a team, I know the Bengals had some rough patches, but that was a team that had things going pretty well here last couple of years. So you put him in a situation where things aren't going well. He's not dealt with that before. You got a team full of guys where everyone's kind of looking around like, okay, who's the leader here? And but what told me that before the season was you had everybody talking about how the leader on offense was Will Levis. That's not what you want. A guy who's played half a season in the NFL, when things start going south for him as they have, it hurts his ability to be a leader in that locker room. And right now I feel like this team, and I've felt it all along, hasn't been a cohesive team. And if you want to put that on the head coach, you can, but that's an awfully tough thing to ask somebody who has never done that job before to come in and take all these personalities and all these new people and have them coalesce into a cohesive, strong team. I feel like that was always the strength with Mike Vrabel. The Titans didn't have a ton of talent, but they always seemed to outperform that talent. They were always stronger than the sum of their parts, and I feel like this team is weaker than the sum of its parts.
That's well put. So, Gentry, how would you evaluate the front office performance? Obviously, a lot of incompletes, but so far, as you said, some of these signings have been bad. And I'd like to get your number. Robby's at 25%, front office fired. Kaharski 6. I'm 2. Give us a number.
Oh, you had to ask me. I heard that. I was listening to that conversation. I was like, what number would I put? I never came up with one. I'm closer to Robby on this.
Thank you.
To be honest, I don't see how I agreed with Robby. I don't see how you can look at how things have been run in that organization the last couple of years and think it's just that inconceivable they could make some changes. I might even go a little higher than 25.
Whoa.
Now we're talking.
Okay.
Now we're talking.
Interesting. My goodness.
I love it.
I'm here for all of it.
I just know, the last couple of years, anytime we've sided on she's not going to do it, you know what? She's done it.
That's true.
And
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. Gentry, great stuff as always, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Take care, guys.
All right, Gentry Estes from the Tennessee and our guest on Robby and Rexrode. A lot to get to there from Gentry. Love that conversation. We'll get to more of that coming up next. A lot of your thoughts to get to as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Preds fans, don't miss this Wednesday night Smashville live show at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. See your Predator star players up close and personal. Also, get your chance to get autographs and pictures as well. Player guests this week will be Mark Del Gaizo and Zachary Larue, who makes his NHL debut tonight. That's Wednesday night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue, and you're home for the Nashville Predators, 102.5 The Game. We will get back into the Predators here momentarily, take more of your thoughts on that. Interesting conversation with Gentry Estes in the last segment. Joe, he may be higher than me in terms of the percentage chance that the Titans move on from the front office at the end of this season. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm surprised. But, I get it. I do. I get what you're saying. I get what he's saying. Again, I'm basically just guessing that the backlash has risen to the point where Amy Adams-Strunk knows she can't keep doing this. But I don't know. And again, it's not just that. I mean, this is like I've argued on Jared vs. Joe last week. Stilly, of course, mangles my words and lies and says I say she won't do it because she shouldn't do it because it looks bad. That's not at all what I said. I think she might not do it because of that, but also I think she might not do it because what I would hope from Amy Adams-Strunk is that amid, these sweeping changes and all the things she's done, as she sits down with Mike Keith and talks about all the reason to be excited for the future and all this, that during the process, both of hiring Rand and then, of course, Rand bringing in Chad Brinker, but then also the process of hiring Brian Callahan, that she did her homework and that she was heavily involved in all the discussions and that she believes in what they told her and that she knows what they're doing on a daily basis and that she believes in the process. And if not, that's really bad ownership. If so, then I don't think a 1-5 start for a team that no one picked to make the playoffs, largely because the quarterback has been disappointing, is some fireable offense. Now, again, as we've talked about, Robby, there's also still, if Snead all of a sudden can't play / is bad,
right?
If Ridley is gonna flame up, things like that, I get. Like if a lot too many of those decisions, big decisions with her money, are flaming out, okay, then I think you can get a little closer to it. But I just if she has done what she should have done through all this to be in command of what they're doing, then you can't just keep changing. You have to trust. You have to give some runway, don't you?
Yeah, I mean the question is how much, right? I mean the 1-5 start is one thing. If they end up 2-15 or 3-14, to me that's another, right? You're talking about being maybe the worst team in the league at that point. So I think everything's on the table if that's where it ultimately gets to. I'm not saying that it would be absolutely the right move to move on because, I'm with you. In an ideal world, you're right. The idea of just changing up the picture this often is not a sign of stable ownership. It's not a sign of a good franchise. It's not a sign that, quite frankly, things are going to get better as you move forward here. It's just very reactionary. So I get all that. I also behind closed doors, how much did she believe that the quarterback was going to take them to new heights this year? And how responsible is a Chad Brinker or a Rand Carthon for that? They hired Brian Callahan, yes, because he's a good coach, and yes, because he was going to get a job, and he was a hot name on a lot of lists, but they hired him to come in here and develop the quarterback. And if you get through an entire season and the quarterback's not being developed, as a matter of fact, you can make an argument he's regressing. I don't even know if it's an argument. He is regressing. And you end up 2-15 or 3-14, which, by the way, I think is very much on the table for this team, then I think that changes the equation at the end of the year as to how you look at this thing. Again, I'm not saying you absolutely fire them at the end of the year, but I do think it calls into question, all right, you guys were responsible for, in many ways, turning over this roster. There's a lot of change heading into this year. You do have a new head coach. We've talked about this quarterback. Can I really trust you to go get the next guy? And that's more of a Carthon Brinker conversation. I don't think Callahan is going to be in any danger of losing his job after 1 year.
Well, I agree with the last part. No, I agree with what you said there. Then you get into, first of all, with all this stuff, there's way more information that she has that they have that we don't have, and it can be critical information. But also you get into, okay, so can you look at this and say, see, this has all been the reality of those terrible drafts coming to roost, and you're not going to flip it around this fast. I think there's some truth there, but like you said, if you're like 2-15, that is not what she expected. That is not what she expected going this season. And then you can get into, well, look, in this league, this happens all the time with quarterbacks, and you think someone is one thing, they're another thing. You do all the work, everything looks good. It doesn't work out on Sundays, so chalk it up to that. How willing is she to entertain that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But I mean, that's where that's the back and forth with that, right? Like the quarterback just befuddled everybody on Sundays, and the roster was just like, it's just a rebuild. But that is where, but I don't know anybody. Someone's tweeting at me that I said they were Rand and Brinker were awesome and that they were going to be a winning team this year, which I never said either thing, but like, what were her expectations?
Right.
What did she think this team was going to be? Probably not that. Maybe she was like, okay, realistically, this is a 7-8 win team. I don't know. Or maybe she said, hey, all that money, well, we better be right there in the AFC South. And if that's the case, then my 2% probably looks a little low.
LD from McMinnville says, Robby, I think 1-16 is on the table. Another texter says the Tennessee Titans are the Cleveland Browns of the South. Another texter says, if I remember correctly, the over-under for wins was 3 in the preseason. I believe it was 5.5, maybe 6.5.
Yeah.
It was definitely
not
3.
No.
But
no,
they're going to struggle like mad to get to 5.5 or 6 right now.
Yeah, you picked them to win 7. I picked them to win 8. You know, I didn't see anybody who picked them to win less than 5 this year. I didn't see anybody, and I could have totally. If I'm wrong, correct me. I'll gladly laugh at that media member. I did not see any media members in town who picked them to have a winning record this year.
I do not recall. If they did, I guess 9-8. I think I may have seen some 9-8s. But other than that,
okay, tell me who so we can laugh at
I
them.
don't remember. I think some of them were national where I saw 9-8. But you got 700 people making predictions, so you're going to run into.
Yeah, for sure. Our guy Charles seems to be like a little bit too high on them every year, huh? He may be the problem.
Maybe. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Kevin in Union City. Kevin, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, guys. I'd like to just kind of weigh in on this. I actually kind of tend to disagree with you guys on it being a dysfunctional franchise if we were to fire everybody. The reason being is because I'm in HR, and when I first got into HR, I was told the worst thing that you can do, basically when you hire somebody, you don't know if they're going to work out or not. But when you figure out that they're not, the worst thing you can do is just keep giving them chances. And the in-game decisions by Callahan so far really have me thinking that he's just not the guy for the job. So at the end of the year, if they don't start showing major improvement from here on out, I say clean house from top to bottom and start all over again.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Kevin. I understand that thought process. And look, I will say this, and I don't think it's going to happen like this because, quite frankly, I don't know that I see a scenario where they're going to fire Brian Callahan after year 1. I will say, though, at some point, if it continues to go poorly, it would be nice to get the general manager, the front office, and the head coach on the same timeline. It would be nice to get back to that at some point.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And yeah, look, I haven't liked some of the in-game decisions. To me, the bigger issue with Callahan is what you said, Robbie, which is, okay, you're the quarterback guy. What's up with the quarterback, right? I didn't like the 4th down call the other day. I don't think it's been terrible. But and I hear what the caller's saying about the HR thing. But again, this is where it's like, we know the results are bad on a daily basis. Do you believe what they're doing is smart? Like, does it make sense? Can they clearly communicate to you the plan? These are there's a lot of information we don't have beyond just the results that, to me, and if you're feeling bad about that, well, then I would tend to agree. Okay, well, then you just made some bad hires and you have to fix it once again immediately.
Michael and Massad pointing out that Ian Safar had him at 4 games. Ian may end up being right.
Good job, Ian. Kind, gentle Ian. Just like, yeah, this team sucks.
They're just bringing the noise on the Titans. 615-737-1025. A couple more of your thoughts to get to on the Titans front. We'll get into the Preds coming up as well. Going for their first win of the season still tonight against Boston. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
Yeah, it's special. You grow up. This is the goal. You don't dream about playing in the American Hockey League. You dream about playing in the National Hockey League. So obviously this is a moment that's special for me. But I think it's more than that. It's my parents. It's grandparents, all family, coaches. Everybody that's been along the way for the journey. Hopefully just getting started, but still it's a step in the right direction, and it's really special for sure.
Zach LaRue, after practice yesterday, who looks like he'll make his NHL debut tonight as the Preds take on the Boston Bruins. By the way, speaking of that game, got some tickets to give away for tonight's game to take on the Bruins at Bridgestone Arena. 7:45 puck drop tonight. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to the Preds take on the Bruins tonight at Bridgestone Arena. Joe, we talked about it earlier. Preds 0-5. The numbers on that, not great in terms of making the playoffs. No team's done it since 1995-96, starting 0-5. Now, there's only been 17 other instances in the modern era of this happening. So there's not a ton of sample size, but the bottom line is Preds need to get to winning, and they need to get to winning in a hurry. LaRue looking like he's going to be with McCarron and Smith tonight. It looks like Tomasino and Parsonen going to be the odd forwards out here. So we'll see if LaRue gives them any sort of spark. Beyond that, though, Joe, like right now you've got a team that is generating a pretty decent amount of chances. They're not converting at the rate that they probably should be. Some of that could be just luck. Some of that you need to bear down and put the puck in the back of the net. And Adrian Burnett kind of talked about that yesterday. Sometimes you make your own luck, and the Predators aren't doing enough of that right now. I would not say that they are getting bailed out by Saros either. He's got an .875 save percentage. According to moneypuck.com, his goal save above expected is somewhere in the -3 range, which is bottom 6 in the league. And he's not, Alexander Georgiev bad in Colorado, who I think already in the season is like -9.9 goals against save above expected, which is pretty hard to accomplish. But I think the slow starts that we've gotten used to from UC Saros, it's definitely fair to say that he's in the midst of another one right now. So they need that to pick up. And quite frankly, this is 2 years in a row now where there's been a slow start. The numbers have been down for Saros, and it's very early into this season. But they did just sign him to an 8-year contract extension. He's got 9 years left here. He's going to have to pick it up. He needs to pick his game up now.
Before I address that, Robbie, did I hear in that comment some disrespect for the most beloved team in our city, the Milwaukee Admirals?
I think you might have.
Did I people don't dream of playing. I beg to differ.
No one dreams of playing in the American Hockey League.
Man, I tell you what. No, hey, maybe Saros, I don't know, he got paid and,
taking
not
it
working
easy
anymore, man. That's a thing in pro sports, right?
Yeah.
Someone gets paid and all of a sudden they don't care. They're fat and happy, fat and sassy. No, I think in all seriousness that, I think the UC Saros, the slow start thing is real. And why is it? Is it his style? Is it like because he's such a, he has to be so explosive and quick and, side to side, like it takes some time to hone that I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. But I think it's a pretty consistent thing you can expect that it's going to be a slow start from him to a season. And again, if that's the case and then the rest of the season goes the way they generally have been, then I think you're going to be fine with that contract. I mean, the contract it's the front part of it, just like all these guys with the timelines. It's like, and right now, you now have a team on paper that should be able to really do something, right? So it's these early years that matter. But yeah, it'd be great for him to come up and just steal a game. I mean, someone's got to do something extraordinary. I mean, again, not extra. It's not like they have to have someone get a hat trick to win a freaking game, but someone needs to step up and do something beyond the norm, really good, to be enough to get them one win. And then I think, a lot of things can calm down from there.
Oh, they just got to get on the same page. And, that's a simplistic way of putting it, but they'll go through stretches. Like I thought in the Detroit game on Saturday, They came out flying. Luke Shin gets the goal. They got another goal that was disallowed because of an offside play. But, up until that point, they were dominating Detroit. Like, they had the puck. They were putting, good quality looks on net. And it kind of felt like after that goal got taken off the board, they just stopped playing for like 20 minutes. And I know they didn't, like, their effort was there, but they just looked disjointed out there. And look, Andrew Burnett's got to get that figured out. Like, this is 2 years in a row where they have gotten off to slow starts. Like, they were 5-10 last year. Now they're 0-5. They were able to get out of it last year. But look, the bottom line is, I don't care how talented your team is, and this one is certainly more talented than it was a year ago. You're not going on 16 0-2 runs every year to dig yourself out of a hole. Like, it's not happening. So you got to find a way to nip this in the bud quickly. You've already dug yourself a hole. I said it earlier. I look at the season in 10-game segments, and there's going to be some times along the way where you go, 4-6 or 3-7 or 4-4-2 or whatever it is in a 10-game stretch, and it doesn't go the way you want it to go. And maybe the Predators are getting one of those out of the way early in the year, and they rattle off a couple of 10-game stretches where they're 9-1 or they're 7-2-1 or whatever it is. But you don't want to dig yourself in such a hole early in the year that you're just in catch-up mode the whole year. And quite frankly, like, this is a team that should not be in catch-up mode. Like, with the talent that they've assembled, we've talked about it. They should be competing for the division. They should be competing for a top 2 or 3 spot in the division. And I know it's early, but they're already 10 points behind Winnipeg, 10 points behind Dallas, 9 points behind Utah, and 8 points behind the Blues and the Wild. It's not insurmountable, but that's a pretty large hole to be in 5 games into the year.
Then it says, if the Preds win tonight, we rush the ice, tear down the net, march it down Broadway, and toss it in the river. Did you see the texter earlier that said, like, the monkey paw effect where Brunette helped, like, with the goal post with Vanderbilt, and so now all his shots are hitting the post?
No,
as a
I
Preds fan said earlier. Yeah, how about that? But another question earlier in the show that I wanted to get to was about the system, and I would say this in general terms. My understanding of it, if a system is really effective, and I do think when this system is played well, it is, well, then I think it kind of makes sense that also it is hard to play it really well.
Yes.
If that makes sense. And so, to your point on being on the same page, I think that there is some precision and chemistry that goes along with this system that if you don't have it, sometimes it's going the other way on you, which we've seen, right?
Yeah.
And you can go through stretches where you just look disjointed and muddled. And I guess I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I wonder if also that's going to be something that we see through the Brunette era, is that slow starts, even if you have most of your team back, are going to be a thing. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, that really should be affecting 3 people. Like, that should be affecting Stamkos, Brady Shea, and Jonathan Marchessault. Everybody else has basically been here. So again, you need more from guys that have been here. Stamkos got on the board the other night. That was good to see. I think you need to see a little bit more from Marchessault than you've seen to this point, and I'm interested to see when that happens. But they gotta get that part of it figured out. And the other thing is this: like, we brought up LaRue. He's going to play on the 4th line, so we'll see how much of an impact he actually has. That 4th line has been getting absolutely caved in. I think they're being outscored 9-1 right now, 5-on-5, and that's an absolute anchor if that's happening to you.
And they have enough possible answers for that not to happen. And maybe LaRue is going to end up being exactly what they hope, and he's ready to do it now. But, like, that should not be happening.
No.
Think about last year at times what that line did for them.
Exactly.
With some of the same guys. A lot of the same guys.
Right. 615-737-1025, our phone number. It is time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025. If you guess the goal scorer for the Preds tonight, you want a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
It's time for Preds Picks to click.
And a shot at the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. It's Pick to Click, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is time for Preds Pick to Click. Preds back in action tonight, taking on the Boston Bruins at Bridgestone Arena to close out the homestand. A standings update in the competition. Joe Rexrode on the board once again last time out, as was I, which means Rexrode / Kuharski in first place with 2 correct answers. I am in second place with 1 correct answer. The listeners and Keyser still shut out in the competition, so we'll see if any ground is made up tonight. With that in mind, let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Kenny. Kenny, thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators?
I got to go with Jonathan Marchessault.
Jonathan Marchessault. Kenny, thanks for the call. Marchessault on the board against Edmonton last Thursday. So Kenny going with Jonathan Marchessault tonight. Joe, Marchessault off the board. Your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
You know what? How about a little Stamkos?
Steven Stamkos, the selection. So the 2 new forwards off the board. Marchessault, Stamkos gone. Nick Keyser, your pick to click.
I'm going to go with Ryan O'Reilly. I think he's due. He's been pretty pissed off lately. I think he wants to execute well. Give me Ryan O'Reilly.
Well, with that being the case, I will go with Philip Forsberg. Philip Forsberg, my selection in the competition. Marchessault, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Forsberg, the selections in the competition. I was Joe, I was going to go with Evangelista because I got a feeling about him tonight, but when Forsberg was there, I just couldn't pass it up.
You know, this is, and we'll see, if it plays out this way, but I think these selections, Roman Josi is going to get not picked a lot.
Yeah, I know.
And in past years, it was almost, I bet you he was 85-90% that he was one of the 4, which again tells you what they've done it forward, right? It's just a matter of that playing out in more production and actual wins.
Well, look, the one thing that I would feel pretty encouraged about if you're a Predators fan, and it's hard to be encouraged about anything when you're 0-5, and the bottom line is none of this matters until they start winning games. They have, by the numbers, generated a lot of looks. They have gotten a lot of shots on goal. They're generating looks both on the power play and at 5-on-5. Before Stamkos scored the other day against Detroit, I was like, did he, was this like a Joe Boo situation from Major League? What's going on out there? The save that Alex Lyon made on him, like the knob of his goalie stick, was just unbelievable the other day. And it was like, is he ever going to score a goal again? And then Stamkos broke through. So maybe that's the beginning of a little bit of, explosion for him right now offensively. They need UC Saros to play better. They certainly need to play better defensively in front of him. I'll be quite frank with you. Carrier and Lozon got to get better. They've been bad so far. They got to get better. So there's a lot of room for improvement in front of the goaltender right now. I think also if you keep generating chances to the level they're doing it right now, at some point it's going to break through for you, and you got to find a way throughout the course of a game to just not have 10-minute lapses, which in different ways it's kind of felt like they've had in every game, right? Some of them have just been handing odd man rush opportunities to the opposition left or right, but some of it has just been you've not been able to generate anything for a 10-minute stretch in a game, and that's a sixth of a game right there that's gone, and you've accomplished nothing offensively. They've had too many lapses where they just haven't done anything throughout the course of a game.
Yeah, no one likes their game for 60 minutes, but yeah, if you have a stretch that long, that can wear on you, of course. I do, going back to the Barry Trotz analogy you mentioned earlier, the hitter, scuffling or whatever, right? You do wonder if some of the goals, the chances not translating to goals, bad shooting percentage is the product of that, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens usually is then you'll have a 6-goal game and kind of feel better. That's what they need. They need a win of any kind, but like a 6-2 win would be maybe even better than just a win.
Harold Henry on the text line says, fortunately for me, I was out of the country for 2 weeks. and couldn't see one game for the Preds or the Titans. Maybe I should go back for 2 more. It's from Hero Metal Henry on the text line. Good to hear from you, Henry.
1 in 10. 1 in 10.
I mean, look, it's funny to talk about pressure on a hockey team 6 games into an 82-game season.
Before Halloween.
They need to win tonight. Like they gotta find a way to win a hockey game tonight. And if you do that, then you've got Columbus and Chicago this weekend, 2 teams that you should beat. They got to find a way to win a game. So we'll see if they can do that tonight. Joseph, that does it for us today. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3, The Game.